So buyer's agents are becoming more and more known in the marketplace for the role they play. But what is it that they actually do when they're faced with a client who wants them to help them out? And the first thing is it's generally a property that's being identified, or in some cases being presented from the client. And the first thing we've got to do when we get that property is first of all see if it's actually been priced correctly. Because quite often there's a number of things that are actually going on. So for example, it might not be in a residential zone. It might be in a commercial zone, which has a huge impact on the price that the property can actually achieve. And equally, it may have varying titles. So it could have a standard full green title, or Torrens title, which is the highest and best use or the highest and best title. But what if it actually has a strata title, or a stratum title, or in some cases a company title? All of these things really do affect the end price that the property is likely to get. And then of course, in the bigger cities, we have that enormous challenge, which is underquoting. So we've got to see if the quote that's being reflected is actually going to be indicative of what the price is likely to be on auction day, or if we have to negotiate as a private sale. So as a buyer's agent, that's the very first thing that we're doing, is just making sure that it's been priced correctly. Second thing we do is then we have to actually do some price comparables and actually find some other properties within the vicinity that are a reasonable comparison for us to get an idea of what the price should be. So first of all, we start with the land size in the same suburb to compare like with like. And then it comes down to architectural style. Am I comparing a 1950s post-war house with a 1930s Californian bungalow? Because the market has very different price expectations for those. What about the amount of house that we're getting on the land? This one over here might have a small house, this one might have a larger house. And then of course the quality of the reno or the fit out internally. Is it original in condition, or has someone put a bit of work into making it look better, making it more contemporary, making it more livable? And of course the flow of the floor plan between the two. Because ultimately, I think residential real estate is like a fingerprint. No two are the same. It's like if I go and buy BHP share number 53, it's no different to BHP share number 72. They're exactly the same. But with real estate, even for apartments in the same block, they're never the same, because I've got different aspects and different looks. So it makes it very difficult to easily price real estate. But that's essentially what we're doing. Applying some technical craft, some experience and some intuition to help us get that right. Once I've done that, then I've got to go and physically inspect the property. And what I'm trying to do is get an understanding of the suburb as a whole and work out where the A grade streets are, the B grade and the C grade. Because I know that location does 80% of the heavy lifting, but I want to get into the better areas where the people have more desire to live, largely the owner occupiers, because they are going to help drive the price up for us. Then once I'm in the suburb and I'm looking at the streetscapes, as I'm standing out the front of a property, I want to see how that one compares in context to the other ones in the street. Because that's, am I on the high side, am I on the downside? I want to know if it's a cut through street. I want to know if it's tree lined or it's pretty barren. These are the things that we're going to do to help us determine what we're going to buy. And then I want to have a look at the neighbours. If I'm looking at that property, what are my two neighbours and the one across the road actually like? Because if they're not desirable, then I will see a steady flow of tenants moving in and out of the property, versus people who are very house proud and look after their property. Means that my tenant is going to likely want to stay in the properties for much longer. And then of course I walk into the property and then I start inspecting the structure, what the rooms are like, all that sort of stuff. So pricing correctly, then doing some price comps, and then I do the actual physical inspection of the property. And then if I'm actually satisfied at that point, I then go away and do some due diligence. I look at the contract. That's where I'll find out what the title of the property really is. I'll get a building and pest inspector to go out and check the property to make sure that this place isn't going to be a money pit full of maintenance for the investor going forward. And I guess I want to have a look also at approvals to the neighbouring properties. Are they selling because next door just got an approval to build a very big extension out the back, which will not only create a lot of noise for the next 12 months, but it'll also create some overshadowing into the backyard, for example. So these are the things that we want to uncover and make sure that we're not buying something that is potentially going to be a problem. And then the last thing I deal with a client is psychology, doubt and fear. Because most people would love to think that they could purchase property like a robot. You know, it ticks all of the boxes. It's often the most used term in real estate, ticks the boxes. But then their mind and their values and their history and their fears and their doubts kick in, and they get remorse. And they think, well, maybe I shouldn't. What if interest rates go up? What if I lose my job? All of these things. So a buyer's agent has to deal with all of that psychological stuff that comes from buying a very significant asset that most people only ever do maybe 2 or 3 times in their lifetime if they aren't investing in property. So it's an important decision that people will need to make, and we need to be aware of that and provide enough EQ into the equation as well as the IQ that it takes to purchase the property. So my conclusion is that being a buyer's agent is part-time technician, part-time psychologist. Because ultimately at the end of the day, there's so much that goes on with what a buyer's agent actually does. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to one thing, and that's helping a client get to the position where they can say yes. Because if they can say yes, they can ultimately move into their dream home and start to create memories. Or if they're an investor, they can buy a property that will contribute to the family's financial goals and ultimately provide them with some financial freedom going into the future. So there you have it. A buyer's agent is a really fun and exciting role to be a part of, but there's more to it than just bricks and mortar. There's the psychology, the human component, and also the bricks and mortar. But I wouldn't be anything else. I love being a buyer's agent, and I think that it's a very, very good way for people to make better decisions when buying real estate.